אנדרי דולקין מסייבר-ארק. אנדרי מכהן כיום כדירקטור בכיר בתחום פיתוח ומחקר של סייבר סקיוריטי בחברת סייבר-ארק ומנהל את מעבדות המחקר של החברה. אנדרי מביא עמו לתפקיד 12 שנות ניסיון במחקר איומי סייבר ומחקר ופיתוח בתחום ההגנה. אנדרי מתמקד באיסוף מודיעין וסיכול בתחום המתקפות הממוקדות, ה-APT, וכמובן במתקפות על תשתיות קריטיות ומערכות מידע. אנדרי הוא חבר בצוות החשיבה הבינלאומי בתחום טכנולוגיות אבטחה לענן ובפורומי אבטחת מידע מובילים נוספים. ואנדרי, כולנו מכירים את סייבר-ארק כחברה שמובילה באמת את הנושא של Privileged Identity Management, ולשם הגילוי העולם אני רק אגיד ש-JVP משקיע גדול בחברת סייבר-ארק. איך הדבר הזה מתחבר בדיוק לסייבר סקיוריטי ול-APTs? מקווה זה אחד הדברים שאתה הולך לענות עליהם בפרזנטציה. תודה.
תודה, גדי. Shalom, I'm Andrey from Cyber-Ark. With your permission and as a courtesy to our many international guests, I would like to present in English. Cyber-Ark is indeed a global cybersecurity company, a recognized market leader with over 1,300 enterprise customers, including leading companies in vectors such as energy, banking, defense, pharmaceuticals, and many others. In my position as the head of cyber innovation, I'm in charge of the technological research in the company and of the innovation processes. So, in a coordinated attack in December 2012, a group of hackers breached an Indian bank and elevated the withdrawal limits on accounts, and then throughout 26 countries, they withdrew money from ATMs to the sum of $5 million. In February, 2 months later, they repeated this action, but with a credit card processor to withdraw $40 million. So in total, it was $45 million. In March 2013, the networks of 3 major South Korean banks were paralyzed, as well as networks of 3 media companies. And an official investigation showed later that it was a North Korean attack motivated by political reasons. In December 2012, the New York Times and the Washington Post revealed that they have been breached, and the goal of the attackers was to recover information about journalists who were investigating corruption allegations in the Chinese government and their sources. What distinguishes these attacks is that they're all targeted attacks. They target specific organizations, and they are not opportunistic. The attackers are funded and directed by criminal, competitor, or government elements. They collect mission intelligence on the specific targets that they're after. They will use various attack vectors, and if one vector fails, they will try another until they succeed. And usually they prefer low and slow approach, though recently we have seen many attacks directed at destructive goals. Just consider the attack on Saudi company Aramco, where 30,000 machines were destroyed and hard drives deleted. There is a joke I'm sure many of you are familiar with about 2 hikers hiking through the forest when suddenly a huge brown bear appears on the path. So one of the hikers drops his backpack and starts lacing on running shoes. "What are you doing?" asks the other one. "You won't be able to outrun the bear." "I don't need to outrun the bear, I just need to outrun you." So with opportunistic attacks, this is a good analogy. When the attacker is going after your personal information or your credit card number, it doesn't matter who the target is. All you need is to have slightly better security than the next guy, and you will be protected. But with targeted attacks, the bear is coming directly at you. If we analyze these attacks, we can identify the perimeter breach, which becomes easier and easier to achieve since the attacker has unlimited tries. He has thousands and tens of thousands of potential goals, all the company employees, and they will eventually succeed in installing a beachhead in the organization, meaning taking over a single endpoint, for example. The last stage is, of course, the attack goal being achieved. All the leading organizations today, and as was mentioned earlier, operate under the assumption that they have already been breached and that the attacker is inside. The fact that the attacker is inside doesn't mean that the attacker achieved his goal. It only means that the attacker has a compromised endpoint or a mobile device or any other means through which he will operate. What the attackers do then is they exploit privileges. They need those privileges, they need those operation permissions in order to achieve their goals. The kind of accounts or privileges that we are talking about here are not regular user accounts. We are talking about administrative accounts. The attackers are looking for them, for example, root on Unix machines, because they allow them high permissions for operation. We are talking about application accounts. Consider, for example, a SAP application that needs to access its database. So it will have a connection string, right, where the credentials are hard-coded. We are talking about third-party or service providers, for example, someone providing maintenance. About business users and process experts who are privileged users in their own capacity. So if the attacker is after, for example, in the RSA case, he's after the seed numbers, he knows what users have the privileges to access this specific information. And social networking accounts, we usually don't put them in the same category as privileged accounts, but just consider what kind of damage an attack on the Twitter or Facebook account of a major corporation can do once hijacked. So for example, in a sample attack, I won't go over this, but you can see that once the attacker is inside the network, he extracts the hashes from the Active Directory, and then he operates as a legitimate administrator with legitimate administrative tools. In another attack, the attacks that I already mentioned on the South Korean infrastructure, the malware propagated from Windows machines to Linux machines, and it did so by looking for hard-coded credentials that resided in remote access applications on Windows machine, and it just took the SSH credentials to access those Linux servers. In another attack described by Mandiant, for example, they discovered an attack that came from a service provider, when the goal was company B in this case. And when they blocked that attack, the attacker went after a business partner, company A, and tried to infiltrate company B through them. I will skip this, but just as an example of the importance of targeted attacks on social accounts, you can see that the breached Twitter account for Associated Press generated this drop in Dow Jones. The solutions that I would like to propose consists of 3 steps: protect, detect, and respond. The first step of protection is putting a central system in place which will control all the privileged access. It replaces the access credentials to all the organizational assets, and from that moment onward, users, applications, and business users, they will all perform their privileged activity, not all their activity, but only the privileged activity through that central system, which then enables us to control, to manage, and to monitor all the privileged actions. The second step is to have all those actions analyzed. So once we channel the attacker to go through the central system, we can now analyze, build behavioral profiles, understand what is normal and what is an anomaly. It is very, very difficult to do that without that central system, because the attacker will operate anywhere on the network, and we have to have a huge number of sensors. But with the central system, we can analyze what's happening there. And the last step is, of course, respond. So we can respond through the security operations center of the company, or if we have the central system in place, we can just terminate the malicious session there. And this is a huge benefit for any response. So to sum it all up, we have targeted attacks that are going after privileged accounts, since they want to exploit them to impersonate privileged users and to operate in the network. And this can be mitigated in our solution by protection, which means installing a central system, detecting anomalous activity, which can indicate non-legitimate use of those credentials, and response, which either by terminating those malicious sessions or through the established procedures of the Security Operations Center. Thank you very much.
Andrey, תודה רבה.